greenhouse gas emissions in the shipping industry. Well, joining us today to speak about that important topic, Constantine Kodros, CEO and founder of VesselBot. Constantine, it's great to see you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Russell. Thank you for having me.
Constantine, it's a fact that greenhouse gas emissions, GHG emissions, are down in shipping. So what's going on there? What's that all about?
Yeah, they are down. Actually, we need to put things into a perspective.
Please.
One of the key factors that is impacting emissions is the speed that the vessels are sailing with, are steaming. So this year specifically, we've seen a reduction in the speeds of vessels, which caused a relative reduction in fuel consumption and emissions respectively. So for this year's, primarily for this year's reduction, I think we are mostly seeing this impact coming from the speed reductions that is due to the financial situation in the market as well. As you understand, if freight rates go down, apparently carriers go with a slower speed so that they consume less fuel, so that they reduce their cost base. So this is an indirect impact into emissions.
Well, that makes sense. I understand that, but that leads to a question: are there any other particular areas of the transportation space that are doing better at reducing GHG emissions than in others in the shipping industry?
Yes, and to an extent, yes. Partially because there are some initiatives of having larger vessels that are able to carry much more cargo. So when you have a bigger vessel sailing and it can carry 16,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 TEU, as you may understand, that can be allocated, the emissions overall of a voyage can be allocated to more containers, and as a result, that can be a more efficient way of shipping goods. So we are seeing different patterns in the market where bigger vessels are coming into play, or more usage of alternative fuel, not to that extent that it would make a big difference, but this is coming into play. So we are seeing some changes on vessel sizes and alternative fuel that are causing some reductions.
Constantine, if we could look at the headlines, so to speak. Right now, we are seeing more and more carriers are deciding they are not going to transit through the Red Sea for obvious reasons, the terrorist attacks on their vessels. Consequently, they are making much longer transits. Obviously, more fuel is consumed doing that, etc. So, and this, of course, has been going on for a while. There's no way of knowing how much longer this will happen. But disruptions of this nature impact greenhouse gas emissions to some extent. So I'm just curious what your view is about these emissions up and down and how that impacts the industry.
We actually did a research about this specific topic, and there is a substantial impact because of two things happening. The distance has increased, as you may understand, going from Cape of Good Hope. There is a substantial increase in the distance, but to compensate for that distance, for the extra distance, the carriers, to maintain the schedule reliability, they also increased the speed. So remember, I told you, speed means, increasing speed means increased emissions, and increased distance also means increased emissions. So we've got two significant factors really increasing the amount of emissions that are being emitted because of the Red Sea crisis. So yeah, substantial impact to the environment because of this as well.
So the bottom line is, in 2024 and in the tail end of 2023, we can expect to see that these emissions have skyrocketed. I mean, they will increase quite a bit.
Correct, to some extent, yes. It will depend for how long this will be prolonged. And it will also depend on what the other trade lanes are doing and what is happening on the other trade lanes, because as you may understand, this is a part of the whole market. We need to explore other parts of the world and geographies to see what is happening in other markets. But for this specific trade lane, definitely we will see an increase there on emissions.
Let's talk about then what's driving the move in transportation and in logistics to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Let's talk about that bigger picture, if you will. What do you say?
I think mostly this has to do with 2 or 3 different variables that are kicking in. One is consumers are demanding for emission reductions. So the consumer nowadays is becoming more and more interested into such emissions. So on the product they are consuming, so this is pushing shippers to push the carriers to reduce. On the other side, we've got a lot of legislations kicking in. We are seeing the CSRD regulation in Europe, EU ETS and maritime emissions coming under the scope of EU ETS. SEC contemplating on establishing regulation for reporting such emissions in US. So a lot of regulations are coming into play that are pushing for carriers and shippers to take action to reduce their emissions. So this is also another factor. And apparently there is a lot of discussion around green finance. So banking institutions are also pushing their customers, either this is a carrier or this is a shipper, to reduce their emissions so that they get more beneficial financial terms on their loans, on their debt. So this is another, if you like, variable of the whole chain that is pushing for such reductions.
Very, very important issue, the green transportation. Absolutely, very important stuff. Constantine, I want to turn to VesselBot itself, because it occurs to me that perhaps some viewers may not be familiar with your company. They realize, of course, that you're involved in shipping some kind of way. Talk to us about VesselBot. What does it do? What's its focus? How long has it been around? What do you say?
VesselBot provides Scope 3 transportation emissions data that are coming from primary sources and that are giving the kind of transparency that shippers are looking for to enable their decision making to reduce their emissions, to report their emissions.
So typically, who would utilize VesselBot services?
Anyone that ships goods via any transportation mode. So
it's not just ocean carriage?
No. We cover all transportation modes with primary data or model data. So any entity that is shipping goods and has a logistics footprint activities can be our customer.
Absolutely, very important stuff in a very important area that you're involved in, I must say. Thank you so much for sitting down and speaking with us about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Russell, for having me. Thank you.
That's Constantine Kodros with VesselBot, speaking with us today about greenhouse gas emissions and the need to reduce them in shipping. Thanks for watching.